Welcome back to America's Commercial Real Estate Show. I am Michael Bull. The segment is brought to you by Red IQ. Check it out. They turn multifamily data into actionable intelligence. Check them out at rediq.com. Well, today we're talking about medical office today is the name of the show. And my next guest, you may know if you've ever sold a medical office building, well, let's say in the last 10 years you've bought or sold a medical office building. His name is Paul Zeman, and Paul Zeman is a partner with my firm at Bull Realty, and his practice is solely focused on selling medical office. Joining us today.
Good morning. Always glad to be here.
Well, Paul, the first thing I'd like to ask you about is really cap rate trends, because I think a lot of people are out here who are concerned about where we are in the cycle and interest rate changes and tariffs and the economy, and curious, hey, where are we on cycle? Not on cycle, but where are we on interest rate trends? You're tracking it every minute of every day. What do you see out there overall?
Well, in terms of interest rate trends, we've been fairly stable, and there was even some talk from the Federal Reserve as recently as yesterday about potentially lowering interest rates as much as another half point by the end of the year. Whether that happens or not is inconsequential as long as we don't see an increase in interest rates. I believe that cap rates are going to remain where they have for the last several years.
Yeah, in the medical office building world, Paul, I know it's specific to each building. In fact, a cap rate or value of a medical building can change overnight with the changes in the lease and the competition in the marketplace. But overall, what are you seeing trending? Are cap rates kind of remaining stable? Are they rising? Or?
Well, Michael, I track medical office buildings that are all over $5 million to get a more clear picture of what's going on. And the 12-month average for medical office buildings over $5 million for the last several years has been right at 6.5%, 6.50. I did some research recently, and I have seen that the transactions that have closed so far in the second quarter of 2019 are at about a 6.8 cap, which is 30 basis points higher than we've been seeing year after year. However, that could shake out a little bit differently when the quarter is finished and all of the transactions hit the books. So it's really nothing to be overly concerned about.
Right. Hey, what do you see every day, Paul, as far as demand from investors? Are they still really hot on medical office? The demand continues to exceed the supply. And if you're a seller, that's music to your ears. Mm-hmm. We do see a lot of folks really stretching and trimming their profit margins to get into an investment of a nice quality medical building. There's still not a lot of reckless cash out there. People are still being careful what they buy, but the demand is still extraordinary. Right. And speaking of demand, Paul, what do you see for demand from tenants out there in the medical office building world?
Michael, that's largely dictated by the overall vacancy rate. And I remember a few years ago when, if you could find a market that had a vacancy rate of less than 10% or into the single digits, that was also extraordinary. And now we're seeing on a national average about 7.3% in vacancy. That's certainly going to change as more and more properties are delivered to the market, but there is more demand from tenants. And as a result of that, we're seeing higher rental rates than we've ever seen historically.
Yeah. Well, it seems to make sense when you look at the demographics and you look at the large group of baby boomers out there demographic-wise, and they're starting into that age where healthcare is more. There's more demand from them, right?
Absolutely.
Well, Paul, let me ask you this, because I was just talking to an owner who owns a lot of large office buildings, and I lead a team that sells regular office buildings, and 95% of those investors, those REITs, those institutional owners, the private equity, the funds, that do regular office, they have no interest in medical office. I bring that up. They say, no, we're fine with office. What's the deal there, Paul? What's up with medical office buildings that keeps people away?
Well, there's a number of reasons there, and I said all along that medical office is really just complicated office. There are a lot more moving parts to a medical office building, a lot more rules and regulations, so to speak. If the health system involved, you might have Stark laws or Stark issues to contend with. In certain states, you have for surgery centers and imaging centers and cancer centers and such, certificate of need laws, LNR, a lot of moving parts. And then as well, when you need to fill a vacancy, the tenant improvements are typically a lot higher in a medical office building than in a general office building. And your audience of who you could market to fill that space is quite a bit smaller.
Yeah.
So all that together is what kind of steers clear some of the regular office investors. However, if you have a fund that's set up and medical or healthcare is your expertise and you understand all this going in, it's still very attractive and obviously my favorite sector of commercial real estate.
That's right. It is very specialized, though, and I think one of the things that makes it very interesting is how long these leases tend to be. In medical, they seem to be a lot longer than in regular office, and the tenants tend to be real stable. They don't really want to move around, do they?
No, they really don't. And you know what's also baffled a lot of folks is that typically cap rates on general office buildings are lower than they are on medical office buildings. And I believe that's for a lot of the reasons, especially the TI and the difficulty of finding a new tenant if one potentially leaves.
Yeah. And Paul, if investors are out there that have some medical office building experience and they want to see more opportunities, how do they do that? How do they get in front of you to have opportunities to buy medical office?
If I just get a basic understanding of their investment criteria, what parts of the country they're looking at purchasing, size, dollars, potentially what type of a return they're looking for in terms of cap rate, I can provide them with the right opportunities.
And so what do you expect moving forward for medical office building? If you've been tracking very closely for many, many years. So if you look forward into the rest of 19 into 2020, what do you expect for tenant demand, and what do you expect for cap rates for MOBs?
I'm still anticipating that cap rates are going to be right in that mid-6 range as an average. I still see the off-campus, maybe physician-sponsored, buildings trading in the low to mid-7s, and I see the trophy assets, trading in the low 6s or even in the high 5s in some cases. But I continue to see the demand increase. I continue to see the sector grow. I continue to get phone calls from more and more investors that are interested in looking carefully at the space. Yeah,
well, it's certainly a great space to look when you consider the demographics, when you consider how long and stable these tenants are and the type of high credit tenants that you have and these types of assets. It would seem to be more recession resistant, if you will, right?
That's true. Yeah. And the more and more that we see the large health systems acquiring large private practices, we're seeing more and more off-campus medical buildings with hospital sponsorship, and that typically, but not in all cases, means extraordinary credit.
Right. Well, Paul Zeman, thanks for joining us, sir. We appreciate you being on the show.
Always enjoy being here. Thanks very much.
And thank you for joining us around the world or around the U.S. We appreciate you being on the show. Hey, we do like hearing from you. Please connect with us on LinkedIn and on Facebook and on Twitter. And we appreciate you sharing the show and letting us know your comments. Until next week, be sure that you always lead, learn, and laugh. And join us for America's Commercial Real Estate Show. America's Commercial Real Estate Show is brought to you by Bull Realty. For customized asset and occupancy solutions, visit bullrealty.com. Commercial Agent Success Strategies. Incredible training for commercial agents. Visit commercialagentsuccess.com. Red IQ.
turning multifamily data into actionable intelligence. Visit rediq.com.